Tauranga moana, kāranga mai, Ngāti Pukenga, ngai te rangi, Ngāti rangi nui e tau nei. Not that long ago, that was more than enough Māori. Naida Glavish said kia ora when she pulled out those things at the telephone exchange, which we've forgotten about. Said kia ora, and she hit the headlines in the newspaper. When I was campaigning for mayor, I said tēnā koe, which means hello. That was too much for some of the ratepayers or the voters. They never voted for me, obviously. And then just a little while ago in this fine city, a short mihi was too much. I remember getting a phone call from the State Services Commission to say, Meng, you have got the job. I was actually in London. I was visiting my grandchildren. And I said, right, we've started. And I was looking up. See it, say it, sorted. This is what's on the tubes, underground railway stations in London. Because they had a whole lot of bomb threats and bomb explosions in the 70s and 80s. See it, say it, sorted. And I thought to myself, one thing I need to do is actually make sure that whatever I do is actually easily understood. And so I thought, oh yeah, I think 3 A's. 3 A's of awareness, affirmation, and action. Nice and simple. Not the Australian Automobile Association, but awareness, affirmation, and action. When I was at Mākaraka school, I actually didn't know I was Chinese till we actually learned these rhymes. And these rhymes used to go Ching Chong Chinaman, and it ended up with this particular one, pulled the wrong tit and out came a bucket of shit. You probably know that if you're a little bit older. I went back and I said, Dad, I've learnt a new rhyme. And I said the rhyme to my father. And he says, don't you cheeky yourself, you are Chinese. And I said, oh, okay, am I? Because I quite like white food back those days, because we used to swap my char siu bao, my drumstick, which was a soy sauce, si ao gai, with soggy lettuce sandwiches, banana cake, yummy, soggy jam sandwiches, and my mates used to have this exchange, and we loved it. I loved white food. And I just want to acknowledge my parents. My parents came, my dad and mum came from war-torn China, and they were refugees from Guangzhou to Hong Kong. Even though my parents didn't know each other at the time, my father came here. As you know, Chinese people invented Google back in 1947 and says, oh yes, I think I'll go to the first place in the world to see the sun. And he worked hard and he saved some money. And the first racism that he actually encountered was actually the purchase of land. Not too much different to nowadays. And he had to pay a little bit more than the market price because he wanted the piece of land. And the farmer, Pākehā farmer, says, yes, I'm going to sell it to George. However, the farmers around them says, don't you sell to those Chinese people, or Chinamen, they called us. not very sophisticated because they only made China and man. They couldn't actually make any more, something explicit than that. Anyway, Dad bought the land, and then he went back to Hong Kong to get Mum. Girlfriend, not quite. It was those days, it was about arranged marriages. And so my aunties had arranged a few girls in Hong Kong, and men from Gisborne flew all the way to Hong Kong to get their wives. My parents married in late December, around about the 26th of December, and then Mum was pregnant around about the 28th. I don't know how they did that, right? But I was born in Gisborne, made in Hong Kong, born in Gisborne. Awesome. I remember the nuns from the Catholic Church coming to our school and teaching us about Mary and other biblical things. The earth was made in 7 days, and the seventh day was a Sabbath day, and that was the day for rest. And I enjoyed singing at that time. When I went to at Makaraka School, we were very fortunate. This was back in the 1960s, and our principal, Pax Kennedy, he actually had the Māori families actually come and teach us Māori things, like their culture, their tikanga, and to speak. But I already had a little bit of knowledge in speaking Māori in the vegetable shop, because I was a person that liked mimicking people. So if someone came from Scotland to our shop and says, "Could you give me a cabbage?" And I said, "Yes, you can have a cabbage." And so that's how it went. Or someone would say, "Top of the morning to you." I said, "Top of the morning to you too, sir." Or a person from Ngāti Porou would come and say, "Hey, kei taha, he kāpiti mahu." And so I would actually say things. But you know, when you learn languages, it's always the naughty things and the not appropriate things that you learn first, right? And then my Māori customers will actually say, "Kaua e kōrero pēnā," don't say it like that, but kōrero pēnei, say it like this. And so they corrected me, and I continued my journey, and I just spoke as everyday language that you would speak out on the street, not necessarily the academic Māori. And so, interestingly enough, when I went to Gisborne Intermediate, on the last, there was no Māori at all, not even nothing, zero, in Gisborne Intermediate. But interestingly enough, the last day at school, one of the teachers, Huri Callaghan, says, "Well, boys and girls, if you want to take Māori at school, you can take it at high school." And I said, "Oh, goody. I'm going to do that because I can beat all these Māori kids," because at that time I was quite sad. In the 60s and 70s, there was no Māori actually taught in the homes. And you hear the stories of punishment. And we learnt Chinese at home. I learnt 2 dialects of Chinese. My father was Siyip, Ni Ho Ma, and my mother was Cantonese. And so my mother said, "Well, what do you think you're going to be taking at high school?" I said, "Oh, English, maths, science, social studies, and Māori." And within a quick breath, she said, "Saijohi," which means waste of breath, waste of time, right? Anyway, we visit Mum now and again. She's passed on now, but we visited Mum in Hong Kong. They retired in Hong Kong. We go up the lift, and I said, "How's the Māori, Mum?" Because I've become the mayor. You see, how's the Māori, Mum? I can tell you, if I never had the Māori language, I wouldn't actually be here. In actual fact, when we bought a shopping centre, Hemi Hikawai was the chief in charge of the Kaiti Community Centre, and he said, "Boy, you'll make a good councillor." Now, I have been slogging away, cutting cabbages and picking potatoes, rain, snow, hail, sunshine, and sometimes getting a bill for the broccoli that you send over to Rotorua, and you think, "Oh yeah, give it a go. I said, I don't actually know what it does. What do you fellas do? And he says, lunch is good. And I said, yeah, I'm into lunch. Yeah. But anyway, we are a immigrant family, and we taught to actually keep our heads down, backside up, work hard, and not disturb the peace, right, of the country. And I'm just thankful that Hemi actually said you would make a good counsellor. Now, if you're in a majority, and if you see quiet people in your organisations that have the potential to do things, especially Māori, Pacific and Asian, and if they are quiet, don't ask. Tell them. Tell them that, Sione, you would be good at organising the gala festival for our school. Because you know what happens in school. The teacher will say, who wants to rub out the dust on the blackboard? And all the Pākehā kids will say, pick me, right? And so just choose. As we reimagine our country, we need to be aware that it is a huge fruit bowl of diversity, of different looks, different thoughts, right here in Aotearoa. And it is happening. Diversity is a given. It's not only diversity of colour, but also diversity of where you are from, rural, diversity of LGBTQI, diversity of disabilities, diversity of people having difficulty to hear, all sorts of diversity. This is what makes this country great. And this is the thing that I hope that we can reimagine, that we are aware of our people in our neighbourhood. Now, I remember when I first got elected onto council, I was actually having a bit of self-doubt. And I was thinking, will our ratepayers actually vote for a Chinese person? Because it was predominantly European in the rural area. And I chose the rural area for a purpose because I can actually go and visit the 2,000 homes there in Knock Knock. Just a word of advice, when you go knock knock, just whistle and shake the gate, because the dog might come out. And as we become aware of our communities, we need that affirmation. The reason why we need affirmation, because we are terrible as humans. We tend to forget. That's why we go to church often, or go to the places of faith. That's why we need to get our license renewed now and again, or get our health checked. Or do you think sometimes we might think this problem that I've got pain with might disappear? Or do we know that if we reaffirm stuff like learning languages or learning at universities, you do assignments and you continue to learn, that will reaffirm your awareness that your community is as diverse and inclusive as you want. And the last thing is you've got to act, because there's no good doing nothing. There's no good talking about the rhetoric. There's no good just saying things, because when my wife says, hang out the washing, happy life, happy wife. And that's the truth. It doesn't matter in what culture we're in. It actually is the same. Harmonious communities, culture eats strategy for breakfast. All the time. I'll give you an example. If you have harmonious communities just in your family, it is so easy to actually get things done. You can plan to build a house, you can plan for holidays and buy a car and have children, but if you can't get on with your spouse or partner, you're going to end up with half. That's how disruptive it is. And if you're in organisations, you would know about PGs, personal grievances. They are terrible, unfortunately. They take a lot of time, they take a lot of energy, and they take things out and not focus on the harmonious part. I liken life, if you go to work every day in an organisation, treat it like dating. Okay? It's not the dating that is about sex or anything like that. It is about the relationship, about your approach to that person. Be kind, be nice, be generous. You know, when you date, you actually reward. So in your businesses and organisations, do you actually acknowledge people and reward them by saying nice compliments to them that you're doing well? Do you actually give them a bonus now and again? And then, for men, do you stroke your mate on the shoulder and says, let's have a coffee one day? Because that's what some men do to women. Harassment, right? So do as you do to everybody and treat them equally. Now, I'm still waiting for Graham Henry to actually choose me to be an All Black. Back those days, I've been waiting all this time. And I just enjoy this particular picture of us. And as you can see, we had a lot of market gardeners around our area in Tauranga. And the thing about the collegiality, the team, and nowadays this picture may not actually be the picture of today. Women, girls can actually participate in rugby. Reimagine Aotearoa that we need to value Indigenous thoughts, Indigenous processes, and it is actually right here in your doorstep. You would know that in many organisations that the values of Māoridom, from kaitiakitanga, manakitanga, aroha, Maoritanga, all those sort of things are actually in all organisations. There is a hunger for those values because they are enduring. New Zealand is a nation of hundreds of nations within it. Every iwi in our nation is a nation of their own. Ngāti Pukenga, Ngāti Porou, Tainui, Horota, they are all individual nations here living harmoniously in Aotearoa. And we have an opportunity to be world leaders in a country of caring, which has been shown during March 15, the pandemic, a nation where we can actually build nationhood of inclusion and being great New Zealanders. I think that won't be too long that it could be Aotearoa. It was Aotearoa, and then Tasman came and called it New Zealand something, and then it actually anglicised to New Zealand. And I dare say, like Mount Egmont, Taranaki, Poverty Bay's Tūranga Nui a Kiwa, and our nation could be Aotearoa. Ladies and gentlemen, it's been awesome having a chat to you, but remember the 3 A's: awareness, affirmation, and action. Keep it simple. Make every day of your life a date. Tēnā tātou. Kia ora. I'm the last speaker, and I'm going to sing you a little song. The song comes from our uncles from C Company, Māori Battalion. When they went over to Italy, they learnt a lot of Italian songs because the vowels are exactly the same in their pronunciation. Mama son tanto felice perché ritorno da te, la mia canzone ti dice che per Belgiano per me. Mamma son tanto felice, Vivere tano perché mamma, solo per te la mia canzone vola. Mamma, sarai con me, tu non sarai più sola. Quanto ti voglio bene, queste parole d'amore, che ti sospira il mio cuore, forse non so dono più, mamma, ma la canzone mai più bella sei tu la vita, e per la vita non te lascio mai più, mamma. Mai più. Kia ora, everyone. Have a great evening. Thank you.